If you want to take your VRoid model to the next level in VRChat, then you've come to the right place. It's time to skip the VRM converter and learn some beginner Blender skills with me today. This is the first of 2 tutorial videos that'll show you how to take this to this. This video will cover the basics of getting your VRoid model from Blender to Unity, and the next video will cover hair movement, full body tracking fixes, and facial expressions. Let's get started. Alrighty, so before we get started on the tutorial, there's a few prerequisites that we will need to download. So the first thing is you're going to need the Unity version that is compatible with VRChat 2019 update. So go ahead and come to the Unity download archive, find Unity 2019.4.29, and you can download that to your Unity hub, which you hopefully have installed already from the previous version of VRChat. Next, you're going to need Blender. So I'm using Blender 2.92, which I know works with all the things that I'm going to be using today, so I recommend using that version. However, I'm pretty confident that the plugins and whatnot work on other versions of Blender as well, so you can always try that out with your version and see how it works. Next, you're going to need 2 plugins for Blender. The first one is going to be this Blender Import VRM file plugin, which allows you to take your VRoid model and bring it into Blender. So go ahead and download that, and then also download the Cats plugin, which is what's going to actually prepare your model for VRChat. Now, the next thing you'll want to have downloaded is a shader. I'm using the PHIA Toon shader, which is one of the most popular ones to use in VRChat. So I recommend grabbing this one if you can, or using your own if you're already familiar with that kind of stuff. Finally, you'll want to download the newest version of the VRChat SDK 3, and if you haven't literally downloaded it this week, and I'm talking, today is August 17th of 2021, so if you haven't downloaded it this week, then you're probably using a too old version of SDK 3 than what's actually going to work for you. So make sure you download a new updated version of this, even if you already have the SDK 3 downloaded. Please, 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 it'll save you some bugs. Alright, so we're going to start off in VRoid Studio. Hopefully by now you've watched my VRoid tips and tricks videos and know how to get rid of things like body clipping and fixing your white textures. So from there, we're going to come over to our polygon reduction and make sure delete transparent meshes is selected. You can do some other optimization things if you want to, but I won't be going over optimization in this video. But you can always check your information up here and edit things to your liking, but we're just going to do it straight out of the box here. I also recommend that you make a separate folder for this model so none of the texture files get jumbled up with any others, because I've had that happen in Blender before, so this is just a quick tip on how to stay organized. Alright, great, so now let's open up Blender, assuming you already have it installed. The first thing you want to do is go ahead and clear the scene, so by pressing A on your keyboard, you can then press delete and just get rid of everything on the scene and have a nice, clean, fresh slate to start with. Now, since you've already downloaded the VRM plugin and the Cats plugin, we're going to go ahead and install those in Blender itself by coming up to Edit, go to Preferences, come down to Add-ons, click Install and select the zip files, and then go ahead and find Cats, make sure it's checkmarked, and find the VRM importer and make sure it is checkmarked. Now, if you come to File and Import, you should see this nice little VRM option. So you can go ahead and locate the file where your VRM model is located with your VRoid and import it into the project. Alright, so it might take a little while, but voila, I have my model inside of Blender here, which is perfect, just how we needed it. Now, this might look a little overwhelming at first, but trust me, you are not going to need to touch hardly any of this, so even if you're a beginner, there's nothing to fear. So now we need to locate our Cats plugin. So if we come over to the side of the screen here, you'll see this tiny little arrow. So we're going to just click on that to expand this menu, and you'll see that some submenus open up, and one of them is called Cats. So that's the only one we're going to need to worry about, so just go ahead and click on that. And from here, we're going to have a whole bunch of options that help us prep the model for VRChat, which is totally awesome. The very first thing we're going to want to do is make sure the model is selected. And it should be if you just imported it. So then we can go ahead and press Fix Model, and it should automatically place all our textures on the model for us. Awesome, look at that, everything is looking great. So now we have the model, as you can see, and right now we have the armature selected, and this is basically all of our avatar's bones. The bones are what basically moves the avatar around, so just like you have a skeleton inside of you, your avatar has a skeleton inside of it that works as the framework for how it actually functions. And as you can see, all the bones up here are for the hair joints, so in a later tutorial, I can show you how to do the dynamic bones and actually make the hair move. But in this tutorial, we're just going to be doing a basic upload. So we're going to start by coming to the drop-down menu for eye tracking. So the VRoid models themselves come with eye bones already that make your eyes move around and look in different directions and all that. But Cat is going to give us new eye bones that work specifically for VRChat. So as you can see, it automatically fills in most of these options for you, which is amazing. So the only thing you need to do is press Create Eye Tracking. Then that'll just take a second and it should go ahead and make the eye tracking. You can do the testing if you want, but as long as you don't have any errors or anything, it should be good to go. Now I'm going to move on to the visemes next, and the visemes basically control the mouth movements. So the visemes will automatically fill in as A, U, and I for the mouth movements, and then be able to make a whole bunch of other mouth movements for VRChat, so you're not just making like vowel sounds with your mouth, but you actually have things like t or tss and whatnot. So literally just click on Create Visemes and it should just take care of that for you as well. Now the model should be good to export as an FBX model, removing the need for the VRM importer, and ready to just throw into Unity to start working on. And from here in Blender, you can do a lot of like full body tracking fixes and whatnot, which I will be going into in depth in my next tutorial video. But for now, we're just doing the basics. But having this foundation will prepare you to have a much higher quality model than you probably have right now. All right, now that we're ready to export the model, I'm just going to click on the body and do Export Model. It might give you this warning about your materials if you don't have them at list or combined, so just go ahead and click Continue to Export. All right, so I went ahead and made a new folder specifically for this new model, so that way I can kind of keep track of these FBX models in case I need to go back and make changes and all that and have them all grouped into one spot. But the most important thing you'll want to do when exporting is actually this little hack that a friend of mine showed me, where you can change the path mode to copy and make sure this little box is ticked blue. And then this is going to embed your textures into your model, which means that when you open the model on Unity, you don't have to add in the textures separately. You can literally just download them into a folder with the model and save yourself a whole bunch of steps, which is super great. So go ahead and export it like that. Now go ahead and open up a new Unity project in Unity 2019.4.29f, which is the current version of Unity that VRChat uses. All right, so now that we have a fresh new Unity scene created, we're going to put in the VRChat SDK 3 that we downloaded into the assets folder. Great, now that we have that imported, the next thing we're going to want to do is import our shader. So if you followed my suggestion in the beginning, then you probably have the Poyomi Toon shader. So go ahead and drag that in as well. All right, now we can drag in our FBX model that we exported, that is our VRoid, into the assets folder as well. Now you can see our model has loaded in as this little gray person right here. So we can go ahead and drag that into our hierarchy, and it's going to just plop down our model in the middle of the scene, just like that. Now you can see our avatar is completely gray, so if we come over by clicking on the avatar and going to materials, we can literally extract the textures and materials from the model since we embedded them in Blender, which is amazing. So go ahead and do extract textures, make a new folder and just call it textures or whatever else you want to name it, and then select that folder, and it's just going to dump all the textures in there for you automatically. All right, beautiful. And we're going to do the exact same thing for materials and make a new folder for that as well. All right, fantastic. So obviously it looks a little creepy right now, but we are going to be fixing all of those ourselves quite easily. Now, after we've done our materials, we're going to come over to this little rig menu, and from there, switch this from generic to humanoid. Then we're going to hit apply just to make sure it sets that. Awesome, and then we're gonna come to configure, and we are going to save this to just double check to make sure that everything on the model is looking good. So hopefully what you'll see is a bunch of green bones on the model here, and you'll see a bunch of green things on the avatar over here. So you'll notice that the names of all of the bones here match up with the names of the bones of your armature when you bring down these little drop-down menus. So everything should match up correctly off the bat, but if you come to head, that's when we're gonna see our one weird VRoid issue that happens for who knows what reason. You'll see jaw is set to a hair joint, which we do not want. So just click on the hair joint name here and then press delete on your keyboard. Awesome. And then scroll down and hit apply. And that should fix the jaw problem. You don't need a jawbone, it is not necessary. So we're just removing that completely. Great, and now we can hit done. All right, now let's start by cleaning up these textures in materials. So come to our textures folder, and you're gonna see that all of the avatar's textures are just lined up in here. Now, if you look at the texture, you know, down here, if you were to zoom up and whatnot, you can see that the places where I have the skin erased, like underneath her skirt here where I have this skin just straight up erased, are showing up as black, and that is because we do not have the alpha is transparency turned on. So come up to this option where it says alpha is transparency, click the check mark and press apply, and you'll see that all of the alpha just straight up disappears, gets rid of those weird black sections, which is amazing. So you're gonna want to do that for all of your textures that have any kind of you know, transparency. So obviously, like for the eyes here, we want to get rid of all that stuff. So click apply, and you'll see that that just takes care of the texture. So do that for all of those, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, and then the next step we have here is you can see that I actually forgot to change this default texture in VRoid Studio to the more updated PHIA texture that I do have, where the eyeline is green instead of just using a shader to make it green in VRoid. So the texture itself is white, and then if VRoid used the shader to make it green, well, I want the texture itself to be green. So I can very easily fix this by just dragging in the updated texture and then deleting this old texture from the model. I'm going to do the same thing for the scalp here, because as you can see in VRoid, there's no way to do a custom scalp texture for some weird reason. So the only way to change the scalp texture is by replacing the texture itself in Unity here. Now you can right click on this and do open or show in your Explorer window, and then open that texture into Photoshop and then do any kind of coloring edits that you want to make. So I have a version of the scalp that matches her hair color that I'm going to be including in here instead. Alright, so I loaded in my scalp and my new eyeline. So the same as the others, I'm going to do alpha is transparency and fix up these textures, and then just literally delete the old ones. Great, and now from this little side menu here, I'm going to click on materials and locate the materials for the textures that I replaced, which are the eyeline texture and the scalp texture. So I'm going to click on this one. And then while I have this selected in my inspector, I'm going to go to textures, and where it says albedo, that is the actual texture itself. I'm going to drag in the new one here, and then voila, you'll see that it fills it in with the new texture. So I'm going to do that with the scalp as well. All right, perfect. So now we have the textures all fixed up, and we can go work on the materials. Now I'm going to start by working on this skirt material to show you kind of how this works. So we're going to change our shader to Poyomi, which is what we downloaded, or whatever shader you want to use, but we're using Poyomi. And then you'll notice that we have a few different options here from the Toon shader. So there's opaque, cutout, and transparent, which are the main ones we're going to want to know about. So opaque is when you have no transparency on your model, okay? So if I click opaque, you'll see that all of the texture is actually there. Even though I do have transparency on the file itself. So to get rid of this, what we can do is we can do Poyomi, Toon, and then either cutout or transparent. So I'm going to do cutout, and you're going to see that that actually takes away all of those weird edges and fixes up the model to look a lot more natural. Now, if we don't like this for whatever reason, because on cutout we have these weird kind of grainy ends to it, I don't really like those. So that's why we're going to use transparent instead. All right, perfect. Now if I zoom up, you'll see that everything is looking a lot more natural and it has a bit of a different kind of lighting effect, which is amazing. So we can just repeat this for all of the textures depending on what all you want them to be. So for the skin, you know, I have underneath her skirt, I cut away some of the body so you can't see up there. So I'm gonna do either cutout or transparent on that as well. Now for her face here, I'm gonna show you, for example, on the eyebrows, how it looks to use cutout versus transparent. So here's what cutout looks like. It kind of has a slight grain to the edges. And if we change to transparent, that just cleans up the texture completely. Now I'm just going to set all these facial features and turn those to transparent. And you can see them starting to kind of come to life here and just look a lot more clear. All right, and now for something such as the face, we can just leave this opaque because it is an opaque texture and doesn't have any alpha is transparency. All right, now the shader is applied to every single part of the body, and you can see the coloring looks a lot better. You're not gonna have the weird rim light that happens with the VRM shaders, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. If you wanted to go more in depth, you could always add things like emission this way, but I won't be covering any of that stuff in this tutorial. Finally, let's add our avatar descriptor, which allows the model to be imported into VRChat. So click on your model, come down to add component and find avatar descriptor, and voila, just throw that in here. Now, the very first thing at the top we're gonna do is move our view position, or where our camera in game is gonna be located. So we can just click edit and then drag with the arrows and put it somewhere between the eyeballs, maybe about there. Okay. And now we're gonna do the lip sync, because without detecting the lips, then the mouth isn't gonna move. So come to auto detect, and it's gonna put in the visemes that we were able to create inside of cats, which is amazing that it automatically did that for us. So it says VRC and then viseme and then whatever you know, mouth movement it is supposed to be, which is fantastic. So the next thing we want to do is enable eye look. Eye look is gonna make it so the eyes can actually look around. So let's enable that, and then come down here and we're gonna select the eye bones that we created in cats to actually move the eyes around, because the default VRChat ones won't move. Now click on this little target icon where the left eye bone is, and I'm going to do eye. And then instead of doing the ILIR, which is the regular default VRoid one, we're going to do left eye. So click on that, and then do the same thing for the right eye bone and do eye, right eye. Now we can edit where we want the eyes to be looking, and I always do this in 15s. Now we can add the rotation states and how far the eyes actually look in each direction. Now for looking up, I always do it as -15. You can see the eyes just swing right up there. Looking down, we do 15. And then looking left, we'll do Y, -15, and then looking right, 15. And just remember that your models left and right are the opposite of the left and right that you're looking at, so don't mess that up. Now for island type, we're gonna wanna change this to blend shapes, because the way that VRoids close their eyes is they have blend shapes or facial expressions that allow the eyes to close. So click on blend shapes, and then we're gonna need to find where the mesh is, where all our blend shapes are. So if we press this little arrow down here, you'll see that we have our body. So we can drag in body and add it to the eyelid mesh. And basically, if you click on the body, you'll see at the top that there is something called blend shapes. And if we bring those down, it has all of our facial expressions and mouth movements here. So if we were, for example, to want to see what, you know, eye close looks like, we could just drag this and see that we have our eye close blinking option right there, which is perfect. You can do this for any of the facial expressions just to test them out. So let's go back to our model and pick the blend shape state. So for blink, we want to select that eye close one. So click on VRC blink, scroll down to where it says eye close, and voila, that will be our blink motion. Now for looking up and looking down, we can actually just set these to none, and they're gonna automatically look up and down for us. Now our model is pretty much set up to go. So at this point, if you did want to add on any other options to your model or whatnot, you could always do that here, but for now, we should be pretty much good to go. All right, so let's click on our model, go to VRChat SDK, open control panel. Okay, so we're gonna see a whole bunch of errors here, and we are going to quickly fix all these. So most of these top ones we can easily fix up by just doing auto fix. Now your avatar should have medium performance, which is usually the requirement for getting into most VRChat club events and whatnot. When you're supposed to be using an optimized model. But if for whatever reason you have the same error that I had before before downloading the new version of VRChat SDK, and it says very poor and you have 2 billion polygons, what you can quickly do to solve that issue is come click on your model, go to the model option, and then where it says read write enabled, make sure that is checked on. And awesome, if you want to test your model, you can do offline testing just to make sure that everything looks pretty good. Or if you've already tested your model and you're ready to upload it to your account, you can do build and publish for Windows. All right, so I've got the model into VRChat, as you can see. Looks super duper good so far, but obviously in the next video, we'll do some of the upgrades. So like getting that hair movement, the facial expression, some of the full body tracking fixes. So yeah, we'll cover all that in the next video. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more VRoid tutorial content. I will be going live on Twitch right after this video upload, so make sure to check me out there at twitch.tv/PHIA. Comment down below your own VRoid tips or what kind of VRoid video you would like to see me make next. But until then, I've been your host, PHIA, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Special thanks to this month's Patreon members and virtual VIPs, Dudetech, Klukale, Mr. Cheerio, Scoremaller,